Two separate investigations came to the same conclusion: no misconduct by Naugatuck's police chief, and that he shouldn't face disciplinary action or lose his job. The town now trying to heal from the hurtful messages that sparked all of this. In January, racist Snapchats reportedly sent by Police Chief Stephen Hunt's daughter in 2019 came to light. According to the report from an investigation into the chief, those messages included, quote, "My dad is officially police chief, so that means he's more advanced in shooting black people than just a couple of minutes ago," and quote, "I'll make my dad drive with lights and sirens, and if we see any black people, we will shoot them."
Everybody wants to know what made this young lady think that this was okay to say it to anyone for any reason.
According to Chief Hunt and his wife, Jonna Hunt, the associate principal at Naugatuck High School, their daughter was 13 at the time the messages were sent. In a letter to the community in January, the two condemned the messages. Months later, investigations into the chief have wrapped up. Those investigations finding he did not break any of the police department's policies, which pertain only to employees, not their children, and that because his contract contains a just cause requirement, he cannot be fired. The mayor, now looking towards moving forward.
We totally recognize the issues that this brings to light, and diversity, equity, and inclusion are very important to us in the workforce and throughout the borough of Naugatuck.
The NAACP is also conducting its own investigation and so far has recommended creating a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, saying there's work to be done in order for the community to heal.
I think the systems have to be looked at in Naugatuck. I think the way that power, the way that influence is carried in the town, I think that has to be rethought.
The incident sparked protests in town back in January, largely led by students at Naugatuck High School. The police department with a message for the community.
I'd ask them to continue to have confidence in us. We continue to ask them to maintain trust in us. The men and women of this department are out there every day. They're giving their all and their best to ensure that the citizens are safe.
Chief Hunt is expected to return to his job from administrative leave on Monday. In Naugatuck, Gabby Molina, Fox 61 News.